Hello, I am the ultimate otaku, and I'm excited to make this Halloween themed video. Today, I'm proposing a theory. A crazy theory, but my theory nonetheless, that Ranma 1/2 is a story about sinners being punished in the depths of hell. Now, I can already hear you saying, how's Ranma 1/2 taking place in hell? Well, my dear audience member, that's what I'm convincing you of today. First though, we gotta talk about what Ranma 1/2 is. A series written by Rumiko Takahashi and was made into a television series produced by Kitty Films that ran from 1989 to 1992. There was quite a few OVAs and 3 feature-length movies. The English dub version was created and distributed by Viz Media. So if you've watched the dub, like I did, you'll recognize a lot of these voice actors. For example, in the latter half of the series, Ranma is actually voiced by the same voice actor as Inuyasha, which is another Takahashi work. A very fun fact indeed. But what isn't a fun fact is that I'll be talking anime spoilers. I'll also be talking about manga spoilers as well, so if you don't want to be spoiled on the series, I recommend that you go and watch it and come back. Otherwise, if you don't really care, great! Because the reason I think that this anime is set in hell is because this anime is terrible. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this anime is terrible because of the music, or the animation, or the voice acting. Well, the voice acting is terrible though because of the stereotypical accents in the English dub, which frankly do not make sense because some of the characters have a stereotypical accent, but others do not, and it just doesn't make sense. But we'll actually get into that. Anyway, this anime is from the late 80s and early 90s, so it's not going to have the same standards that we would have in anime today. That part's a little terrible. Overall though, the plot, as I stated earlier, is that Ranma gets engaged against his will, and hilarity ensues after that fact, as well as the other aspect of the plot, which is why it's called Ranma 1/2. And this aspect of the plot is that Ranma is cursed, and he's cursed with his ability to transform into a girl once he's hit with cold water. A lot of characters in this series have the same type of curse where they are in their normal forms, but once they get hit with cold water, they transform into something else and can only go back to normal when hit with hot water. Of course, because of this curse aspect of the show, a lot of funny and low-key traumatic moments happen to our main character Ranma, which is terrible. But again, as I stated earlier, this is an old-ass anime, older than you and I. So a lot of terrible things that are shown are played off in a comedic aspect. The reason I think that this show is set in hell is because the anime and the plot, well baby, they go in a perpetual loop. Now, I'm gonna explain this, but listen up because this is crazy. Ranma gets introduced to the series and to his fiancée that he's engaged to, and hilarity ensues when they both don't like each other. Ranma later on gets introduced to another girl who's in love with him named Shampoo, who claims she wants to marry him, but he doesn't like her, so she tries to kill him. Hilarity then ensues from that. Then, get ready for this. Another girl comes by who says she's engaged to Ranma named Ukyo. She tries to kill him. He doesn't like her. Hilarity ensues yet again. The same basic cycle. Love rival, near death, hilarity happens over and over and over again, not just to the boy type Ranma, but to the girl type Ranma, and to add insult to injury, Akane as well. We as the audience, and subsequently the characters in the series, are introduced to a new love rival after new love rival, all in the hopes of getting into either Ranma or Akane's pants. We get introduced to a plethora of characters. I can only remember half of their names. But characters like Shampoo, Kuno, Kodachi, Moose, Ryoga, Ukyo, etc., etc. Over and over does Ranma and Akane both have to fight each of these characters, sometimes all at once, in order to be left alone. And for some reason, It doesn't seem to get through any of these characters' heads that Ranma and Akane are not interested in them. It is a continuous cycle, a perpetual loop of the same thing over and over again for 161 episodes. Heck, if you count the OVAs and the movies, it's well over 200 episodes. Do you know how many hours of my life I wasted on this series just to not have a conclusive ending for Ranma and Akane? But, Ultimate Otaku, you say, isn't the manga different than the anime? Isn't there a more definitive conclusion in the manga? You sweet summer child. This is where the manga spoilers come in, so skip ahead a few minutes if you don't want to be spoiled on the manga. But, in conclusion, it's the same shit, just in a different pile. After everything these two go through, which is way more traumatic in the manga, by the way, they still do not get together. They are still interrupted by everybody. And they are still the object of love for a lot of these characters. This fact alone is why I'm convinced that the entire plot is just a method of torture for these characters. These characters are subjected through the same things over and over again. They're tortured, they're beaten, they're bruised, they're physically blown up. They go through these trials and tribulations with literally no end in sight. Not even the manga has a conclusive ending, so it's literally a loop. I'm convinced that the entire city that this show takes place in, for Rincon, is literally hell. A lot of these characters do unforgivable things all the time. Some might say that they sin all the time. Each of these characters in the show, Ranma 1/2, is being punished in hell for the sins that they have committed while alive. Just so we can condense all these sins into easy to understand categories, I'm gonna be dividing these characters up into the 7 deadly sins. Just a disclaimer, I'm aware that these characters have more flaws than just these generalized 7 sins. But, in my opinion, almost every single character falls within these 7 sins. Very neatly, I might add. So I'm just gonna be highlighting a few of these characters. We're gonna go into these characters that highlight these particular sins the most. So, again, keep in mind, there's a couple characters that are in the same category of sin. I'm just going to talk about the ones that are the most displaying of these particular sins. So let's get started with sin number 1. We're going to talk about the main character himself, because obviously the main character, if you've seen the series, displays the sin of pride very, very well, or I guess not well in his case, because he's in hell. Because bro, he doesn't know when to give up. He doesn't know when to say no to a fight. He doesn't know how to realize that he's extremely disadvantaged in said fights. He'll still go into it and say, I'm gonna win. And he also, low-key, never admits that he loves Akane, even though it's super obvious. Why? Because he has a huge pride. His ego inflated. He hates to look weak, and he will purposely throw himself in danger just because of his pride. The amount of times, when I tell you, the amount of times that this man has made me scream at the screen is insane. He is being punished for his sin of pride, Ranma ™𝔢𝔢. The next character that displays the second sin is the epitome, however you pronounce that word, of the word gluttony, Mr. Genma ™𝔢𝔢, aka the father of the main character. You could argue that he's the catalyst for the entire series, because he's the reason why Ranma and Akane is engaged. The number of times this man has sold his own son off just for a few scraps of food is literally uncountable. There was literally a whole episode dedicated to this, by the way. Some guy came by who claimed that Ranma was his son, and the whole mess ensued because of it. By the end of the episode, we find out that Genma is Ranma's father, but he sold Ranma off for, like I said, scraps of food. And the guy coming and claiming to be Ranma's father was convinced that, oh yeah, since I sold the food for this child's mine now. No, it gets worse. Right before the ending credits, another man came by, said, oh yeah, Ranma, you're my son. Which means that Genma has done the same act of selling his child for food over and over and over again. Another thing I will point out before moving on from this terrible father is that he promised Ranma to the Tendo family for engagement. But guess what? He also promised Ukyo and her father Ranma for engagement. Genma promised that Ukyo could be engaged with Ranma if Ukyo's dad gave away their okonomiyaki stand, to which the father gave away the okonomiyaki stand. Ranma ℌ𝔢𝔩𝔩 constantly puts his child in danger, and in the case of Ukyo, she literally came to Furinkan to kill Ranma because Genma and Ranma ditched with the okonomiyaki stand. Father and her were left basically homeless because of this, and Ukyo came back to Furinkan to kill Ranma, even though really she should have killed Genma, but you know what? It's fine. Of course, Ukyo didn't kill Ranma because she's a girl, and this is an anime from the late 80s, so girl must like guy, right? Ranma ℌ𝔢𝔩𝔩, he's the epitome of gluttony. Terrible, terrible man. Third is the sin of wrath, and I don't think there's a better character that epitomizes this particular sin than Akane Tendo. Girl is literally a walking ball of anger. She's constantly screaming at everybody. She's constantly beating people up, especially Ranma. Not that he doesn't deserve it sometimes, but there's times when he's innocent and she still beats him up. Girl literally does not know how to control her anger, and this plot point actually comes up more than you would think. Yeah, she has her soft side, she has a cute side, but her angry side takes over, like she's the friggin' Hulk. Akane Tendo, sin of wrath. Fourth is the sin of greed, and this can only be Nobiki Tendo, the older sister of Akane. She's literally selling people for money. She sells also pictures of Akane and pictures of naked girl type Ranma to people for profit. This girl literally deals in CP, and we're not even going to talk about it because it literally speaks for itself. This is why she's in hell. The fifth sin. Speaking of CP, this character probably deals with CP on a daily basis. We're going to be talking about the sin of lust. And this character, who was the worst example of it, he's literally the worst character in the entire show, and I can say that with my whole chest. ℌ𝔢𝔩𝔢. There are a lot of characters you could say have lust as well, but this dude, he takes the cake, because not only is he obsessed with lust, he's obsessed with stealing children's underwear, especially the underwear of the Tendo girls, of which he lives under the same roof. Now, the reason why he's in the house in the first place is the next sin person that I'm about to talk about. But in general, he's constantly looking up girls' skirts, touching girls' boobs, and I'm saying girls on purpose because he rarely lusts after older women. There's literally a character in the show named Cologne who's the same age as him, who he used to lust over when they were this younger, but he doesn't care for her anymore because she's old, even though he's old too. This guy, ℌ𝔢𝔩𝔩, he's the worst because he cries if he's wronged. Like whenever you push him or whenever you beat him up for doing what he's doing, he's bawling his eyes out. And the worst part of it is that he's probably the most powerful character in the entire series. The entire series. I'm saying everybody would probably be beaten up by this guy. ℌ𝔢𝔢 is the master of the Anything Goes School of Martial Arts, which the Tendos and the ℌ𝔢𝔩𝔢s are training under. This show, of course, is mostly a comedy, so nobody ever fights him for real. But if any of the characters were to fight him for real, they would lose. If any of the characters actively try to stop this man from doing what they're doing, he will literally destroy them. I could argue that he's the devil himself, but because he's constantly also being tortured by everybody else, by being beaten up and insulted and berated, he himself is also being punished. I wish he would be punished in a deeper part of hell, but that's just not how it's working right now. Number 6, the sin of sloth. There's no one else in the show that epitomizes sloth better than Mr. Son Tendo, aka the father of the Tendo girls. Just for the simple fact that he's too lazy to actually make an effort to stop ℌ𝔢𝔩 from violating his daughters. Oh my god. It's not that he just doesn't put an effort in, it's just that he doesn't put a serious effort in. The mayor of the actual town Furinkan that they live in often comes to Suwon Tendo to help on multiple occasions with complaints of an underwear thief, and the poor mayor expects Suwon Tendo to figure this out. But what he does instead is twiddle his fingers and play Go. He's the laziest motherfucker in the whole show, next to only ℌ𝔢𝔩. And the reason I didn't put ℌ𝔢𝔩 under the sin of sloth is because ℌ𝔢𝔩 actually does put in effort, but only for his stomach. The fact that Suwon Tendo does display fatherly tendencies throughout the show makes this even worse, because he doesn't defend his daughters when it comes to ℌ𝔢𝔩, which is just lazy. It's lazy. He doesn't want to. He can, he doesn't want to. Number 7. Last but not least is the sin of envy. And who better to represent this sin than my main man, Moose. I do like Moose, I especially like his luscious locks. But I do have to admit that his jealousy is way too much. Bro literally moved from China to Japan to chase after a girl who clearly and vocally says she doesn't want him. Bro literally goes and gets cursed in the cursed spring for this girl who does not want him. He's constantly trying to kill Ranma over this girl who Ranma himself vocally says he does not want, all because Moose is jealous. He's dumb. He's dumb as fuck. He's the himbo of the show. No, Ryoga's the himbo. He's the secondary himbo. Speaking of Moose, I do have to point this out. Moose is from the same village as Shampoo. Shampoo is a character who is from China, just like Moose, and she has a stereotypical Chinese accent when speaking English. Moose, who's from the same village like I just said, does not have a stereotypical Chinese accent. He sounds like Light from Death Note. Even Shampoo's own grandmother, Cologne, like I just mentioned earlier, the old lady, who spent like 100 years in China, does not have a Chinese accent. Make it make sense. Make it make sense! All in all, the entire cast of Ranma 1/2 are sinful. Every single character constantly commits actions that are against common decency and morality. The entire show is one big punishment. Every character is being punished, and we as the viewer are also being punished by watching these characters get punished. It's not like I don't enjoy the show, and I did enjoy the show while I was watching it, but I was more frustrated than anything else. I did keep in mind the entire time that I was watching a show that was older than me, so there was going to be a lot of things I was not going to like. But even putting aside a lot of the gender and low-key racist stuff of the show, it wasn't a trash show overall. It was a 6 out of 10, pretty easily. So, that's my theory on why I think the characters of Ranma 1/2 are all in hell, being punished in this perpetual loop of a plot. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and tell me, am I right? Am I wrong? Am I missing some details? Am I just stretching this out to make it fit into the mold of the spooky season? I don't know, girl, you tell me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.